It is Wednesday, 7/12/2017. I am Frank Dashwood, and so you know what time it is. It's time for some coin metal. And today, my friends, we have a most bodacious guest coming on, a Mr. John McAfee, security expert and master of evasion, one-time presidential candidate. Unfortunately, he did not get it. I did vote for him. I was sorely disappointed. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and kick it off like we normally do. We're going to do our first dance, and for that, we're going to throw down a little bit of clutch. A shogun named Marcus, here on Coin Metal. Alright, and so that was 9 Inch Nails with Mr. Self-Destruct. And, as your Twitter feed has probably been telling you all day, it's certainly been telling me, we have Mr. John McAfee here joining us on Coin Metal. Mr. McAfee, please take it away. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you for having me on. So I hope you have some questions. I'm not very creative this evening, so
no, sir.
Probably best we start there.
Oh, we got you covered. I really wanted to start with your the basics. You know, where you came into your consciousness of computers. Like I did a little bit of review, a little bit of study, and I noted that you had hit into the substances seen before discovering prominence in computing, but I'm more really interested in your computing experience and as an InfoSec and computer security expert your entire life.
Okay, so it's my security experience you're interested in.
Yes,
well,
absolutely.
That's all I've ever done. I probably have more cybersecurity experience than any human on the planet because I am the oldest practitioner. At 71, I've been doing this for 50 years. And I was doing it before the word cybersecurity was even coined. People are, the younger folks do not understand the reality of the computing world 50 years ago, before there were monitors or keyboards, and all of our programming was done by switches on the front panel of a computer. Not even in assembly language, but in machine language. So, I have a very healthy understanding of the ins and outs of hardware and operating systems, device drivers, the entire thing, which is very helpful for security. And it's a pity that many people in the security field do not have that background. But it's all I've ever done. And so I live it, I sleep it, I dream it, and it's my life.
Well, I had noticed that privacy and security does seem to be, at least at the core, like the center of all the projects that you've been involved in, from like McAfee Antivirus on. And how long were you working with that project?
McAfee? Well, it was. Before the internet, we had bulletin boards. I ran the largest bulletin board in Silicon Valley at the time, 1986. It was called Homebase. I had 32 lines coming in, which meant I could only have 32 users at a time accessing the board.
Oh, wow.
But all of these users also had access to dozens of other boards. They would download programs from one, upload them to another. So when I first wrote VirusScan, which is when the first virus came out, I just put it up on the board for free. People downloaded it, and in a matter of weeks, it was in the hands of hundreds of millions of people.
Oh, wow.
And as viruses became more and more prevalent, I just simply kept up with them and threw the program on the board. So Symantec was the second company to develop antivirus software. Microsoft, oddly enough, was the third. Checkpoint was the fourth. But in 1987, a group did a study and discovered I had 87% of the world marketplace.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because mine was free. It was updated instantly. I didn't have it in a box. And it was more functional than anything else. So That's basically how it got started.
And so from that perspective, I mean, when you look at the internet today, I mean, are you impressed with where it's gotten to since then, or do you see things that you think could have been done differently to affect the way it's developing?
Well, I think there's a shocking lack of awareness of the ins and outs of cybersecurity. I mean, just the fact that a company, CloudStrike, and Dmitry Alperovitch can say, well, it's clearly the Russians that hacked the DNC, when every cybersecurity specialist with any common sense knows that it could not have been the Russians. And yet, it got such widespread belief that Congress held hearings on this. This is shocking to me. Not just shocking, it's like, this is one of the things where I actually have to suspend disbelief in order to think that I'm not having an acid flashback.
No, I feel you there. I mean, it's like 1950s Red Scare all over again. And especially when I hear somebody like you come on and say a 14-year-old in Yugoslavia could imitate a Chinese hacker or something like that, and our security experts would be none the wiser.
It's insane. For example, they're wanting us to believe that the KGB or some other highly technical group within the Russian government would use a program that's a year and a half old, that's been updated 7 times, and is available on the dark web, for anywhere from $5 to $50. And the other versions you can download for free and just give a donation. Please, are they so strapped for cash that they can't build their own web shell? Because that's really all it was. Number 2, are they so foolish as to leave remnants of the Russian language in the object code? Third, are they so foolish as not to remove the compile time? Then the compile time says, yes, this was compiled during business hours in Moscow. Please, if someone in the CIA were to do this and got called into the office and say, Frank, you left the English language in there. Yeah, my wife had a headache that day. I had to go home. I'm really sorry. Oh, well, that's okay, Frank. And Frank, you didn't remove the compile time. I keep forgetting that. I'm so fucking sorry. And then they go, Frank, you used an old version. Well, sir, you only gave me $5 for a budget. And so I got one off of the site where they just asked for donations and used the $5 for lunch. Oh, okay, I understand. No, come on, you would get whacked. Now, do you think the Russians are any different? Please, use your common sense, America.
Well, and it's really funny to me because before the election and whatnot, when there was all that pressure to get Apple to get backdoors on their operating system and give that to the NSA or FBI or whoever it was that was asking for it. I mean, really, looking back now with ransomware attacks like Petya and NotPetya and WannaCry, I mean, what kind of perspective do you have now? I mean, do you feel any kind of vindication or validation given that?
No, vindication plays no part in any of my feelings.
Okay.
I feel frightened. And by the way, it was the FBI, and they claimed that they could not get into it. Yet I knew for a fact that they had a multi-million-dollar contract with Cellebrite in Israel, who can get into any phone, any iPhone. They just wanted a master key so that they could listen to or get into anybody's phone that had an iPhone. Well, that doesn't play with me. But do I feel vindicated? Absolutely not. I mean, our ransomware is getting worse and worse. What happens when someone hacks into our power grid? And 2 weeks ago, Homeland Security said there had been attempts not to hack in, but to sniff, to get information. Well, that's what hackers do for a couple of years before they attack their comms system.
Right.
And our power grid is 30 years old, using computers built 25 years ago and software that was designed and developed before the word cybersecurity was even coined. Imagine how easy it will be to hack our power grid. Now, what happens if someone does hack it, shuts down our electricity, and says, now, America, we want $5 trillion to get your electricity back? That's coming. I'm telling you, it's on the horizon.
I don't have much reason to doubt you in all honesty, and I find that kind of frightening in and of itself. But one thing I think is at the greater root of that, though, with regard to Petya and WannaCry and all those are actually derivatives of NSA tools that were disseminated through some public repository or whatnot. I looked it up somewhere where originally it had been disseminated through a publicly viewable directory, and then from then on out they were upgrading it and whatnot and providing on, I think it was like 4chan or whatnot, notices that they had this available and this hardcore dump of NSA tools and whatnot available that they were offering to people.
Well, the NSA should not pat itself on the back. There are hacker toolkits on the dark web that are available for a few $100s that can do anything, and beyond anything the NSA has developed. I mean, think about it. The NSA is a few thousand developers funded by the U.S. government. The dark web is a few million of some of the smartest programmers on the planet, all exchanging information and sharing tools and building kits so that a 14-year-old kid can do anything that he wants with anyone that he wants. So please, yes, the NSA and the FBI and the CIA cannot possibly keep their tools intact. It can't be done because they run on computers just like everybody else. They are susceptible to social engineering just like anybody else. And social engineering is 80% of the hacker's toolkit. So please, there is nothing safe. There are no secrets. The NSA, the CIA, the FBI may think they have them, but please, last year, a 15-year-old kid hacked the FBI and released on the dark web the names, social security numbers, photographs, addresses of every undercover agent of the FBI. Please.
Yeah.
Now, the FBI says, hey, we caught that kid. Of course you did. He's 15. But can you catch the people who hacked the DNC? I'm afraid not.
Yeah. Well, I got to really wonder about that whole hacking the DNC business. I mean, the fact of the matter is they chose Hillary Clinton as their presidential candidate, and they pulled a Ron Paul on Bernie Sanders. What did they think was going to happen?
Yeah, well, of course. There's no excuse for any of that. And stupidity is boundless, no matter where you look these days.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And, well, so a little bit more about you, sir. I mean, now, I did know that you went down to Belize, and I knew there was some nefarious business and all that, but what I'm really more interested in was the lab that you did have available there. What exactly were you working on down there?
Antibiotics. Using a new paradigm called quorum sensing. See, listen to this. Plants have been around for 1 billion years longer than animals. Animals, when they get sick, you can move the hell away from them. You can run away.
Right.
What do plants do? They can't escape. Your neighbor gets ill with a disease. What do? You have to have some defenses that are highly superior to animal defenses, because for animals it is so easy to escape the source of the illness. So, like your pal is dying, your genes say get the hell away. All right, plants can't. So, 10 years ago they discovered that bacteria are not stupid little independent, isolated elements. No, they communicate. Notice, for example, that when a flesh-eating infection or some other deadly disease gets into your body, those bacteria do not turn pathogenic immediately. They sit quietly, doing nothing but replicating.
Right.
When a quorum is created, meaning there are so many trillions there that it is going to be advantageous, just the sheer numbers, to fight off your immune system then they start eating your flesh or doing something that will cause your immune system to wake up and take notice. Right then it's too late. Mm-hmm. Well, that's some clever shit. That you're all communicating with one another by emitting chemical substances which can be detected in mass. So they all go, hey, there's 16 trillion of us now. Let's start eating this bastard alive. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. We also discovered some from jungle plants, certain chemicals that will block the ability of bacteria to detect a form. So they just sit there replicating forever, doing no damage until there are so many that the immune system notices it anyway and goes, these things shouldn't be here. Let's kill them.
Right.
And so I was researching that.
Nice.
Using the jungle plants along the rivers, the new river of Belize. Made some awesome progress until they destroyed my lab.
Yeah, it seems like that's the most popularized segment of the story is the spiral and your departure, and like I said, honestly, I'm not entirely interested in that at all, especially given the fact that like everywhere that there's like a real concern, like a social concern, I'm like looking through stuff and I find you somewhere in it, you know. So like cybersecurity, I was looking around something about viruses and whatnot, you pop up. You know, I was looking at phones that, you know, like privacy-centric cell phones. You came up again. You know, I mean, and so that, you know, that's, you know, I really wanted to talk to you for these reasons, that you always seem to be in that place where there is some sort of crucial need, or that there's some sort of critical interest, like right now with regard to your ICO. We were talking a little bit about that beforehand, before we started up the show, but go ahead and tell us about that for our listeners here.
Yep, I'd love to. Before I do that, I'd like to go back to Belize 1 second. Oh, sure. Like the Belizean government accused me of running a meth lab. Now, I'm a gringo. It's pretty apparent.
Right.
Central America is where I was supposed to be running this meth lab.
Right.
If anybody knows anything about the reality of drugs, the Sinaloa cartel and the hierarchy and the structure, do you think a white man could move into the jungle, start a meth lab? What's going to happen? 5 minutes later, somebody's going to go, hey, Pedro, el gringo, lache drogas. You know, the gringo's making drugs. The guy goes, well, bring me his head. Please, people. What a ridiculous concept. So, no, if I wanted to run a meth lab, I'd go to Pocatello, Idaho, or someplace safe. Certainly not into Central America. So, anyway, I'll get off that.
No.
But back to the ice.
Honestly, that was a really prudent point with regard to that, because, I mean, I that's one of the reasons why I have so little interest in it, is because, I mean, I guess I'm a little more familiar with the quote-unquote drug market or whatever than some people are, but I mean, it just seemed completely ridiculous to me. Like you were saying about going down to Mexico to make meth. I mean, that's like going to Alaska to make refrigerators or freezers or something like that. I mean, it's like, number one, it's not needed, and number two, they already know all about it.
Yeah. No, it was ridiculous. But the ICOs, yes, I'm actually involved in 2 of them, both of them Chinese. And the reason I'm cooperating with the Chinese is because the Chinese ICO market is completely open. Massive amounts of interest. Certainly more money than anywhere else in the world. And so it just makes sense. The first one is very unique. We're calling it the cash cow coin. And it's basically using the blockchain, much like Airbnb, to find tenable land in the third world countries that small farmers have. In other words, small farmers in most third world countries cannot afford to utilize more than 20% of their land. You have all of this land going to waste, while the agro businesses are controlling 95% of the beef market, the wheat market, everything that we eat. I think from from an ecological standpoint to help out small farmers is probably the best thing we could ever do for this world. So anyway, it's a system where the company is going to be buying calves and putting them on the unused plots of these small farms and sharing the proceeds with the farmers. And also, by the way, just sharing the proceeds with the coin holders. This is another concept. So it's a fascinating concept. The second one is they're calling it the McAfee coin, and it's going to be used to fund an accelerator for Chinese businesses, where the owners of the coins get to provide input into what emerging technologies or companies or startups should be helped. I love that concept.
Oh yeah.
So
I did.
So both of them are coming out this fall.
Nice. Yeah, I did a little bit of reading in the one with regard to the. I didn't see as much on Cash Cow. Honestly, I didn't get that far. The one with regard to incubation of young startups and stuff. I think that it's a really key focus that you're honing in on there. You know, like the early development of a company and the kind of mentorship that you're talking about offering to startups there. I really like that.
Well, yeah, I love the concept, and I've always been mentoring people in technology businesses, young kids, and many of them have been successful. But yeah, so you can actually go to McAfeeCoin.com, and it will link you to a Chinese site that's in Chinese. But you can see my partners and see the quality of the people that I'm working with doing this. Well, actually, I think they even have a pull-down menu now where you can click in English. It's a pretty fluffy site, but it'll give you some idea.
Oh yeah, a little bit of background there never hurts. And so now, with regard to the development of your ICOs, is that primarily happening here in the United States, or is that primarily happening in China?
Well, you know, we're actually with the McAfee coin. The company has decided that it will not accept orders from United States IP addresses or from Indonesian IP addresses because of the incredible amount of paperwork and legal hassles that we have to go through in this country, and apparently in Indonesia as well. You know, that's a tragedy, but you people with Tor browsers can get around that very easily. But certainly, just from a legal standpoint, no IP address will be accepted from the U.S.
Wow.
And I'm sorry for that.
No,
but you know,
with regard
we're all responsible for this mess here. We're all responsible for the SEC, which has such unbelievable power and such little disregard for shareholders of companies that it's one of those other things I have to suspend disbelief. You know, else I'm certain I'm in an asset flashback.
Oh yeah, I can completely sympathize there. I mean, I've been trying to move some cash from one of my digital accounts, one of my Bitcoin accounts, and that is by far been the most challenging thing I've done so far in crypto. I mean, I'm not the greatest trader in the world, but I've done half decent at trading, you know. And as far as doing this show, I've been doing this show for about probably like two years if I did it all cumulatively, maybe a year. Yeah, about a year cumulatively. So I mean, I've been covering this information quite a bit, and yet, you know, I'm just like an average Joe kind of guy. So when I look at it, I see something that I think everybody could be involved in, but for whatever reason, there's this big barrier between banks and Federal Reserve notes and crypto that it appalls me that it exists, especially here in America.
Yes, I agree. There's so much lack of coordination, or the coordination is not the word. Compliance to any kind of standard anywhere in this business. You can go to Coinbase and try to open an account, and without a lot of work, you can buy $200 worth of Bitcoins a week. You can go to CoinMama, log on and be a brand new user, have a credit card, and you get $5,000 worth in a few minutes. I mean, it's bizarre. Also, you know, the wallets, the multitude of wallets that are out there for all of these altcoins, half of them are scams. Mm-hmm. And the other half are virtually unusable because of the complexity. If you want to exchange Monero for Ethereum or Bitcoin or vice versa, you can go to Shapeshift, and 1 out of every 5 transactions is lost in the ether. Mm-hmm. Please, I mean, we're in a world of shit here, and no one's paying any attention to the end user. You know, the altcoins are populated with high-powered mathematicians who have no concept about security in the various layers of software that exist on a simple device like a smartphone, which, by the way, is not that simple. Still, we have a long way to go before this is a solid industry that is reliable, and everyone can have a degree of trust in it.
Now, have you been following the quote-unquote scaling debate in Bitcoin?
The which one?
The scaling debate with segregated witness and all that business?
Yeah, I'm the largest Bitcoin miner in North America. I'm definitely following it.
And tell us a little bit about that. Have you guys fired up your Ethereum mining yet, or is it just still Bitcoin?
Well, we're still Bitcoin. We just bought another 1,000 S9s from Bitmain for our Bitcoin operation, which are coming on. We got them last month. It's a job putting 1,000 powerful ASIC computers online, but we're doing it. And so in 2 weeks we will have 1,600 machines running in the state of Washington.
Rock.
Producing 22 petahash, and we're I don't know anybody else in North America who's pushing that much. Of course I'm following the scaling debate. And no one likes my party line, which is, I'm sorry, for the present, Bitmain rules this world. And to try to buck it, no matter how much you disagree with it, no matter how much you dislike Jihan Wu. And by the way, I happen to be a very good friend of Jihan's, and I like him very much. He's a fine, upstanding gentleman. Yet, nevertheless, he has his own unique Chinese philosophy about how to do business, and that's how he's going to do it. Yeah. If you buck that, we're going to be in a world of hurt. I'm sorry, people. You have to understand where power lies in this world. You can dislike the U.S. government as much as you like, and you can dislike its rules, its regulations. You can dislike the DEA and how it wishes to enforce its drug laws. But you must recognize that the power is there, and therefore you don't wander out on the street and sell heroin or crank or even marijuana in some states and expect not to get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. Jihan Wu rules Bitcoin, like it or not. And so I'm not a stupid man. I am not going to sit there and buck him. You will all get hurt if you do.
As far as that goes, and it's one thing I do try and emphasize on this show is that the power dynamic as it currently exists with regard to Bitcoin that's just what it currently is. It's not always going to be this way. That there will be some sort of...
Of course not. But it is this way now.
Right. No, I mean, I'm not saying
and
that...
until it changes, be wise.
Oh, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. But with regard to that, I'm saying that it's like... Yes, he controls a lot of the hash, but he's not always going to control a lot of the hash. That somebody along the line will come along and possibly displace him. Now, whether it happens here in America, which is less likely by the day, I couldn't tell you. But with that in mind, I just don't think it's really wise to be making decisions about the protocol and whatnot based on what could be just temporary aberrations in the current function of Bitcoin.
Of course. And also, we don't need a temporary solution, something we're going to have to come back to a year from now. Right. We need something a lot more permanent. And I think what Jihan is recommending, it's a lot more permanent. Please, let's have as few perturbations as possible in this process. And
as a miner,
and again, let me tell you the whole story so that you can balance this. Okay,
go for it.
People are saying, yeah, that's because you're doing the McAfee pool with Jihan Wu. Well, yes, I am, and so it's in my interest. People are saying, well, what's in my interest is what's in your interest, because we're all Americans here. Right. I'm just recognizing where the power lies, and yes, we will be creating the world's largest pool, and so what? Does that make what Jihan wants to do wrong? No. It's just people don't like it coming from his mouth. Okay, that's all. It's like, oh, dude, you build all the machines, you own all the computers, and you run all the hash, so you can't be right. Well, maybe he can.
Well, like I said, it's one of those things. Well, I mean, like, where is your perspective on that with regard to segregated witness in the block size debate? I mean, personally, my feeling,
I don't like segregated witness at all. I think that it's limiting. I think it is short sighted, and no, I don't care for it. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, that's my feeling as well, and as a matter of fact, I've gone so far as to state that I believe that segregated witness and lightning networks is basically like a single prong of a multiple prong attack on Bitcoin, because if you go back and you listen to my show on, I think I said I think it's the first nail in the coffin of fintech or something, or U.S. fintech. It's on my YouTube channel. Anyway, I read the first statements, I guess it was by FinCEN, and in there they describe more or less a lightning node operator when they're talking about a money transmitter. And see, I think they've already developed all the background laws for regulating what a lightning node operator will be able to do under the moniker quote unquote money transmitter. And that this segregated witness business is the software prong of it, that like the inner prong, where they're trying to get the changes implemented in the protocol that will enhance or enable the Lightning Network thing to be adopted, and that then it'll be a matter of banks taking up the Lightning Network payment channel segment of the business.
Well, that may or may not be true. I am simply more concerned with the ability of the miners to actually process transactions, and right now we're reaching a limit, and I think that limit will have a hard gate very soon. So, to me, as a miner, Jihan Wu's approach is easy, simple, good God, yes, let's do it. And it will give us all of the flexibility for the future that we could ever want. But no, segregated witness does not do that for me, does not do that for anyone. And it does not give me a sense of either contentment or peace. So,
no, I feel
for me, it's a very simple matter. As a miner, I can't live with segregated witness.
So. And so now we did bounce a little bit on your future endeavors with regard to your mining setup and possibly mining Ethereum here pretty soon. When do you expect that to be coming online?
They're not. They won't be online for another month.
Okay.
And again, it's simply a pilot program where it's a very small thing where you have 60 machines. You might say that's not enough to even know what's happening, but for me, it's enough for a pilot program.
Indeed.
Because seriously, we need to branch out into other alt currencies. I would like to do Monero, quite frankly, even though I can't convince my compatriots to do so. And I think mostly because if you go on the dark web, everybody who's selling weed or heroin or drugs or hitman services is now doing it using Monero instead of Bitcoin for obvious reasons. Please, I mean, I'm not dissing them, but keep in mind these were the same people who first started using Bitcoin. So please, what is the difference?
Yeah, I think that they're also the first people that use the internet. So I mean, and Andreas Antonopoulos goes way further than that. He goes down into cars and telephones and telegraphs and all that other stuff. So I mean, it's just a matter of who's motivated to use the tool, and of course the criminal can probably see the utility of it faster than anybody else.
Oh, absolutely. The other thing is people say, well, no legitimate bank or a banking or any business is going to use Monero, because there's simply no way in hell to find out who initiated the transfer and who received it.
Well, you know, in the function of a bank, though, I don't really...
Which is beautiful. Pardon?
I'm sorry, I was going...
I'm sorry?
I started in there. In the function of a bank, I don't really see that that's a necessity. I mean, they just got to verify that the funds are right. You know, I mean... Still banks are going to want to know. The government's going to want to know, that's for sure. They want to collect their taxes, if nothing else. But so it's going to have a limited utility in some people's minds. But I disagree. I think that all people, deep down inside, see the value of absolute anonymity of monetary transactions. Mm-hmm. And I think eventually people go, look, hey, you know, I mean, the IRS can look at what's happened with your account, or anybody can, if they want to, and if they want to dig deep enough with Bitcoin, but not possible with Monero. I would say
but anyway, I can't convince anybody just yet.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for Verge currency as well. As if you do a little bit of study up on us, you'll find that we are a very privacy-centric coin. As a matter of fact, from what I understand, it doesn't even track any of the IP information that from... I don't know if Monero has fully rinsed that out, or if there was some sort of thing...
Monero's gone way beyond that. I mean, they hash, they shuffle, it's some serious stuff that they do. No. It's very impressive. There's no IP, no way you can get an IP address, no way you can find out anything whatsoever. Once a block has been hashed, end of story.
Nice. Well, now with regard to that and the open source nature of cryptocurrencies, I've long posited on this show that no matter what, there will always be some segment of the crypto space that would be existing more or less as it did in 2013, where people are freely creating coins and distributing them amongst one another. And I'm wondering, do you share that perspective at all?
Repeat it. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, that because cryptocurrencies are open source as they are, that
yes,
that people will continue to be creating coins and distributing them amongst one another, regardless of what governments decide as far as like how they want to approach regulation and whatnot, and that people will be existing online freely doing these things no matter what.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. Listen, Pandora's box has been opened, and there is no way in hell it will get stuff back inside. And if governments are hoping or planning, if they think that legislation or fear or enforcement is going to stop this, it cannot. It will not. It's like governments not liking computers when they were first invented and produced. Doesn't matter. The power is so obvious that it cannot be taken from the minds of the people who created and used them. So this is one of those things. America, Europe, the world, get used to the fact that you'll have to find some other means of collecting taxes, of doing finance. I'm sorry. A new paradigm has arrived. It has taken hold. It has taken root and has flowered. And it is spreading unstoppably around the world. Get used to it.
Now, so you've probably got a better perspective than most of us Westerners here as far as the Chinese scene on there. And with regard to that, what kind of differences do you see in the way that they're addressing cryptocurrencies there?
Well, yeah, that's a scary one. the Chinese, let me tell you what's the fundamental difference between Chinese business and business in the rest of the world is we do something, create something. We are entrepreneurial. We invest in something. We would like to have a return sometime in our lifetime. When the Chinese invest in something, they would like to have a return sometime in the next 10 generations. Seriously, this is the difference. How on earth can we compete with that? We cannot. And so this is a lot of the thinking behind Jihan Wu. Now, he's not thinking 10 generations ahead, but he's sure as hell thinking a lot more strategically than anybody else in this world. And which is why I am fully behind him. I know his plan. He wants this to succeed in the perfection that it can in the long run. Not succeed in the next few months or next year in a manner that will enrich the pockets of lots of different people, because that's trivial, transitory, and utterly meaningless. No, he has a strategy. He wants to see the new paradigm flower in its glory, which it cannot if we're all picking the fruit as it grows and eating it. Do you see?
I couldn't agree more, sir. I could not agree more. And it's funny that you should mention time scale, because I still sense, even in our legislation, this idea of a work paradigm that consists of 5 8-hour days, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And as a matter of fact, I think most people here in the United States still think of things in that kind of that time scale. And one of the things that gave it away for me was on, I guess it was Monday of last week, when there was that major dip on Bitcoin. It happened in the early hours of Monday. Okay, now the early business hours, between, I think it was like 8 and 10 a.m. on a Monday. Okay, so what does that tell you? It tells you it's a bank. It tells you it's a legacy financier that's doing it, because they're still stuck in this paradigm, despite the fact that we're operating on markets that go 24/7, 365, no downtime.
Well, here's my advice. If I were not a miner, I would look at the Bitcoin price once every 6 months. Isn't that a sensible way to do this? Because if you're in this for the long haul, which I pray to God most people are, then why do you care what happened on a Monday or a Friday of any particular month or any particular day of that month? No, this is a long-term thing. If you look at Bitcoin in that way, I don't care which 6-month period you want to pick, it is a winner.
Yeah.
End of story.
Oh, I've said that repeatedly, that you could take any 3-month period on the chart, and if you bought a Bitcoin on month 1 and you sold it on month 3, you made a profit.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure about the 3. I know about the 6, but you're probably right on the 3. Okay, so and if you take it a year, yes.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry. It is a winner.
Yeah.
So please. That's the attitude you should all have. Check the Bitcoin price on the 1st of January every year and see how things are going. Okay? I promise you, you will not be disappointed.
Absolutely. So what was it that first drew you into cryptocurrencies to begin with?
Necessity. I couldn't talk to any of my friends about anything reasonable because they were talking about things I did not understand. So I had to jump on board.
So it was more something that you were catching a hold of in conversation and just said I had to jump forward, or Well,
yeah, because all my friends were talking about what the hell are you talking about? This is back in 2013 or 2012. What are you guys talking about? Mining. Well, you got to go mine what? So finally they sat me down, like sort of one of these intervention things. Like they did, by the way, like they did with Bill Gates when Bill Gates was building the Microsoft network, and then the internet came along, and they had to sit him down and force him to look at the internet, and then he finally went, "Oh, I see." Same thing with me. It was an intervention, and here I am.
Yeah, very good. And so, like, what was your first foray into it? Were you enticed to trade, or were you doing mining right off the bat?
No, my first foray was, okay, I wanted to find out exactly what the depth and breadth of this was. For example, I've been on one of the few people who've been on your show, or even who are listening to your show, who has actually gone on and met a stranger at a coffee shop with a bag with $10,000 in cash in a bag, and this gentleman shows up on a bike with a computer and creates a wallet for me and gives me $10,000 in bitcoins, takes my bag and leaves. And I trust that transaction, and in fact, it was real. Now, there are hundreds of people around the world who do that still, right? Because it's that much of a mystery for some folks. But yeah, because I wanted to find out everything. I hired this kid, by the way, at MGT. Who wouldn't? I go, dude, I mean, first of all, you got balls. I mean, you've got a backpack, and you just stuffed my bag in that backpack. I don't know how much you've got in there, but certainly enough to make it worth somebody's while to rob you. And he goes, don't worry about it. So, so I hired him.
So now, what function is he fulfilling there at MGT?
Yeah, well, being a man of, and by the way, this gentleman had lived in Korea for 11 years and all over the world, a man of the world. His first function is when I spoke at DEF CON last year. We also have another employee, his name is Rob, and Rob, bless his heart, even if you're listening to this, I know you'll forgive me. Rob, the most naive man on this planet, came from a tiny village in Canada. We went to Las Vegas. He was just blown away. Never seen anything like that.
Oh.
And I held a party at the Hustler Club. 5,000 people were there, and it was clear that Rob at the end of the night was going to be left naked and broke outside the club. It was just clear to me. So I said, Matthew, your job is to make sure this doesn't happen. And if he does get rolled and ends up naked outside here, it's your job, not his, okay? That's going to be cut. He says, I got you. Next thing I know, about half an hour later, he's got robbed by his elbow. He said, yes, good God Almighty. I found him in the line for the cash machine with a girl on each arm. I untangled him, and here he is.
Oh, Jesus.
So Matthew fulfills a wide variety of functions within the company.
Sounds like you would have ended up as an unwilling kidney donor.
Or yeah, it could have been even that, but more than likely, the girls would have taken every penny that he had. So you know how it works in Las Vegas. If you're have a drink under your belt and you're not very aware, it's not a wise thing.
Yeah, I've been to Vegas, and I considered it probably the most overrated place on planet Earth until I went to Chicago.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things to be said about San Diego. I mean, about Las Vegas. It's got a lot of flash, a lot of color, a lot of lights. You can have an environment where daylight and nighttime matter not at all. I mean, that's only the easy thing to achieve, and yet they achieve it with great frequency there.
Yeah, well, the thing that disturbed me about it is the volume of water it takes to keep that place hydrated.
Yeah, but I mean, listen to what's happening. The aquifer is being depleted, which means that there's cavernous nothingness under the strip. Eventually, it will get sucked into the bowels of the earth where it belongs. So there's good and bad to everything.
Indeed. And so now, I did talk a little bit earlier about the Privacy Phone project, and I was really curious about that one because I'm really annoyed with regard to the way that cell phones have gone, where you'll have like 500,000 applications running around in the background that you didn't want on and are sucking up your resources and all that other shit. Tapping into your camera and tapping in your microphone without you wanting to, and asking for all these permissions. And so when I read a little bit about your Privacy Phone, I was just like, yes, this man gets it. He gets me.
Well, to me, it's a very simple thing. We went astray when software engineers and hardware engineers colluded and said, "Whoa, look at this! I can make a software instruction turn this phone off or on. I can make it shut down the microphone or open it up. I mean, sure, okay, it's cool. I admit it. In fact, it's downright hot. Okay, nice going, guys. But for God's sakes, don't implement that anywhere. Why? Because if software can turn your phone off, then that software can be interrupted. And some malicious agent can then say, I'm going to pretend to turn this phone off. So I'm going to make the screen go blank. And I'm going to turn off all these little lights. But I turn it off. And I'm still listening to your ass, and I'm still watching your ass, and I'm still watching all of the background communication. Please, God, don't you see this is the fundamental problem with our smartphones? That's why we get hacked all the time. That's why they're so dangerous. And the same thing for the Wi-Fi. The same thing for Bluetooth. It is software that's saying, shut that fucker off, or don't. How do you know if the screen goes blank, or if the little bobby thing at the top of the screen says, oh, your Wi-Fi is off? You then have a good sense of, thank God it's off. Bullshit. You don't have a clue. So my phone is going back to the crude way, like the light switch. You flip the switch, it shuts the circuitry off. I don't care how clever you are as a software engineer. If you can make an electron jump a gap, then please, I want you to work for me.
Oh man, yeah. Like I said, so are you still working on the privacy phone, and where are you at with that?
Yeah, we're not actually giving any details until it comes out. It's coming out the first of next year. This is obviously a thorn in the side of every other phone manufacturer, and an embarrassment, really, because they know the truth. Why haven't they done it? Well, number one, it removes a lot of flexibility that they have for gathering data on you. Please God, to see the problem. And so we're keeping our mouths shut about our progress, where we're getting it made, because that's the last thing we want people to know, and so on. But trust me, I know what I'm doing, and you will be pleased.
I hope so. Yeah, in any case, with regard to specifics, I wasn't so much curious there as, well, of course I am. I want to buy one, but I mean, with regard to giving away trade secrets, no spoilers, please. But I really have to applaud that mentality with regard to the hardware. I mean, I have a lot of trouble with that, and also like planned obsolescence. I have a real difficulty with that mentality. But that's just me. I mean, I want things to work, and I want them to work until it gets run over by a car or a tanker or something, or dropped out of an airplane.
But that flies in the face of logic for the manufacturers. Don't you see? If it lasts forever, they're going to go broke. So no, they have to make it fail, and in a manner that fails right after whatever warranty that you may have thought you had has expired. This is just how the new paradigm of how do we make money. We make money by fooling our customers. We make money by using them as the means of buying the next product. We make it obsolete either because it breaks or because we come out with something prettier that your friend is going to buy and you're not. And you're then going to feel inferior and embarrassed at Starbucks when you pull out your clunky black phone and someone else has a radiating iridescent thing which changes colors every 4 seconds. So, no, I'm sorry, this is how it works.
No, I can completely understand that one, and honestly, I think that second aspect of marketing that you mentioned, more the new shiny, I honestly feel that's a better driver. It's like my fishing reels. I mean, I don't care that I have fishing reels that work or that are excellent in function. But if Shimano comes out with a new shiny that's better than the ones I currently have, I'm going to go out and buy it. It doesn't matter that the ones that I have work still. I'm going to go out and get the new shiny. I mean, but it's only because it's actually.
And it's also the definition of shiny. You know what the new shiny is for me?
What's that?
It's the phone that can't be remotely rooted. That's why I have the Samsung S7, the only phone in the world so far, knock on wood, that cannot be remotely rooted. Well, to me, that's the only value. That's the shiny. Try to hack my ass, please, without rooting me, can't be done. I mean, I will notice you instantly, and as soon as I've disassembled your program, taking it apart and see what you've done, I will kick it out. So, you know, we have a different concept of what shiny is. There's only one safe phone in the world, and that's not going to be safe for long, because I know for a fact every fucking hacker on the planet is trying to figure out how to remote, because you know what that means, remotely rooting. Let's say you visit a porn site.
Right.
The instant you touch the drive-by, you just say Pornhub.com, your download unauthorized application flag is set just by touching. The first click-through downloads a keylogger attached to a remote rooter. And your phone first gets rooted, then the keylogger gets installed, and now you're screwed.
Well, yeah, because anybody can
80% of every phone on the planet has a keylogger on it that can't be detected because you have been remotely rooted. Do you realize how many remote routers there are? Check it out. You can download them, for God's sake, on Google Play. That's how tragic it is. All right?
On the regular marketplace. Oh, man. Well, there's got to be a legitimate use for them somewhere, right?
Well, of course, absolutely. There's a legitimate use for them for anybody who would like to root your phone, which is why look up Towelroot, Towelroot, one of the most common. Now, it's not called a remote rooter. You have to download the program and run it on your phone. But look what I just said. Download, run. So you touch a website which does a push to your phone, it downloads it and runs it. Please God, let's wake up, America.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And so now, other than the hardware stuff with regard to security features, were there any specific software things that you found you really needed to address with regard to the construction of this phone?
Of course. First thing we have is a detector, a software detector for stingrays. That is the IMSI catchers that the police use and the FBI use to monitor every phone call within a 1 mile radius. They're built by Harris Corporation, who has a contract with all of its customers saying, you may not talk about it, you may not tell how many units you have, or if you have any, you may keep your mouth shut. Listen, please see what this means. I mean, this is approaching Nazi Germany and the SS.
Oh, I think we've gone a little farther than that, dude.
So maybe we've gone further than that. No, it has a lot of nifty features in it.
Nice.
And I don't want to talk about all of them or even any of them.
Okay.
I shouldn't have even thought about that because Harris Corp will have a hitman on my porch tomorrow morning. So, but yes, it will address all the things that have been bugged and plagued me as the world's #1 target for hackers, by the way. Who wouldn't be if you were in my position? So, trust me, and if it pleases me, it will please you.
I'm certainly looking forward to that one. Absolutely. And so now, where do you see, as far as like MGT going with additional acquisitions? I notice you're spanning out all over the place. You got 2 ICOs, you got a mining operation, you got the privacy phone. I mean, where else do you see?
Well, yeah, to me, it's all the same thing. I mean, the blockchain is the ultimate cybersecurity mechanism, the ultimate. Because what's odd about it is while it at one point can provide anonymity and privacy, on the other spectrum, it can provide absolute assurance of a source and a destination for any transaction. Well, goddamn, that's very good stuff. And that is the fundamental basis of security. Because if you know absolutely who it is you're talking to, what it is they are doing, and that can be verified by other people, then where's your security problem? only in the other person and whatever implied trust you may have in them. But then that's a problem we've always had in the human species. The problem we have now is you don't have a clue who is doing what. You don't know when the hacker comes into your system to sniff your devices to see if there's anything of interest there. This is the problem. So the blockchain will be an integral part of every cybersecurity platform within the next 5 years.
Well, now, it's been my assertion that one of the reasons why banks won't use the Bitcoin blockchain per se is specifically because they can't mute transactions. You know, that they have to have some sort of, how should I say this, lie or deception concerning the total volumes that they have at any one time. And so a publicly available blockchain that shows things like, you know, what their cold storage reserves and whatnot is kind of antithetical to that ideal. But I mean, because they give you a secure.
Yeah, I understand. I agree.
Yeah. Now, with regard to your cash cow, that thing, you know, I don't know why it came back up to me. Other than I was wondering what your basis for your ICO is. I noticed it'll be a token, correct? I mean,
yes, it will be.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And for that one, you know, I can't tell you exactly what platform we're using and how we're doing this. We're going to be doing it a little bit different. The paradigm is a little bit different. There's never been a coin which will give you a premium before. In other words, a percentage of the growth of the food basis of our commodity. I like that idea. You know, if you have a coin, you will be allocated X amount of revenue from the company. Now, this gets dangerously close to an IPO, right? In the terms of the SEC,
right?
Which is it's tricky. However, we've got the best lawyers in London that have participated in many ICOs, who assure us that this can be structured in a way that this can work. You know, and as much as I trust lawyers, I trust them just as much when they say things like this. So we just have to wait and see. But that's a very interesting one. Plus, I love the idea of helping out small farmers, for heaven's sake. You know, they have no bank accounts, they have no cash. All of their wealth is in their livestock. If their house burns down and needs a new roof, they got to sell a cow. That means another percentage of their land is not used. So to be able to help them, because let me tell you, I never understood the economy of beef before. Had I known this, screw technology, I'd be raising cattle. Because you buy a calf for $400 in 4 months, it's a steer. It's a big cow, which you can sell for $1,400. Now, look at that profit margin in a 4-month period and multiply that out by 3 times a year. Good Lord, there is nothing in the world of technology that gives that kind of return. So anyway, when this was explained to me by these Chinese people who apparently have a much deeper understanding of reality than us Westerners, I go, no shit. So I had to check my reality filter again. Okay, having an acid flashback. I'm like, no, it really is true. I mean, you can verify through multiple sources on the internet, and unless the Chinese have hacked all the sources, then I have to believe that it's true.
Nice.
So anyway, yeah. So buying the calves, and then fattening them on land which is unused now. Think about it.
Well,
I mean, it's the Airbnb of tenable land.
Well, so, I live in the same kind of situation here, where there's plenty of land that can be utilized for that kind of thing. You know, whether it be agriculture or raising beef or whatnot, and it's not simply because the people that own the land don't have the liquid capital to invest in that kind of resource development. But I could see how something like what you're talking about with this ICO, where maybe they plus others would be able to mutually afford that, in addition to the people investing in the ICO itself. Now, were you indicating it actually provides a dividend?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Yes,
oh, okay.
It does.
Nice. And so now, have you been
one third to the farmers, 1/3 to the company, 1/3 to the coin holders.
Excellent. And so now,
and if you run these numbers, by the way, this could be the largest business on earth. You guys need to check this out. The multiple trillions of dollars, and and I know that eating beef may not be ecologically sound compared to eating vegetables. Nevertheless, the trillions of tons of beef consumed every year is astonishing. And we're talking more than the gross national product of America.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
By the way, much of which is helped by McDonald's and other companies that aid and assist in the consumption of this beef. But it's astonishing. And Indonesia, for example, is they import 80% of their beef. Yet have all the land necessary to be totally self-sufficient and exporters as well. So, a lot of these problems are created by the massive agro-businesses, the massive beef industries, the cattle farms, with all of its cruelty and inhuman activities, have pushed and marginalized the small farms. And in the third world, more than anything else. And so this is where we want to start. We want to start empowering the small farms of the world to take back from this nightmarish megalithic machine that cans and freezes and produces and ships and delivers through our supermarkets to us whatever they choose.
And so, with regard to your ICOs, what kind of regulatory pressures have you been seeing?
I'm sorry?
With regard to your ICO, what kind of regulatory pressures have you been facing with regard to those?
Pricing?
What kind of regulatory pressure are you receiving on those?
Pressure? Well, I did say up front that we will not be allowing IP addresses from the U.S. to be participating in it.
Yes, indeed.
There is only one regulatory pressure in this world, and it is the United States. I'm sorry to say that, but we have had the guns, the battleships, the stealth bombers, the hydrogen bomb, the atomic bomb, for so many years that we have, without asking permission from the rest of the world, stamped upon the world our own view, our own legislature, our own ideas, our own morality of what is right and wrong. And we have homegrown some of the most nightmarish governmental organizations ever conceived. The DEA is one, where we fill our prisons with non-violent citizens. Literally.
Yes.
Look at our prisons. They're drug users and drug dealers. Never harmed a soul. Far more of them than there are armed robbers, murderers, rapists, and so on. And look at the SEC, which has evolved to such power, way beyond what it was tasked with, which is to protect shareholders. It doesn't give a shit about shareholders. It makes sure that its policies and procedures are followed, and that the companies are punished irrespective. So this has been stamped upon the world. Fortunately, in faraway places like China, they just don't care. They have their own. There are 2 billion of them. So screw you to America is what they say. So, doing business in America in this arena is a tricky business because of our regulatory madness. So we will not be dealing with that regulatory madness. And for the rest of the world in China, it's an open forum. There aren't no regulations. Do as you wish. Well, it's the ultimate libertarian state.
Well, now, with regard to that, I've been doing this show long enough to have seen at least 2 warnings from the ECOB, I guess it is, or the Chinese bank or whatever. Or in addition to that, the government also flagging warnings on Bitcoin and Bitcoin exchanges and talking about regulation and whatnot. And I've also seen that in Russia.
And they should be. They should be, because there are so many scams out there. So unlike the U.S., which goes, no, this is bad, we're going to no. The Chinese recognize that there are bad apples. Let me tell you how I keynoted the Chinese National Security Conference in China last August. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to one of my handlers about, why is there no crime here? In America, in a city this large, I would be afraid to walk outside at 2 in the morning. No, there is no crime. And there is no crime. And so he goes, well, how can there be? He said, in China, if there's crime in a city, if a gang develops or a cartel, or there's a drug problem, they don't go in and arrest the criminals. They go and arrest the mayor, the chief of the police, and all the heads of the police department and the entire government, because you failed. This is your friggin' city. How come there's crime here? Because you and I know that there can be no crime without the cooperation of the authorities.
Yeah.
There can't be.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So if there's crime in a city, and they do it constantly, so they go and they have public trials for the mayor and the chief of police and all the city officials, because you allowed a crime problem to develop in your city. Now, there will always be people that are drinking or whatever who get out of hand. That's not a real problem. It's the organized problem. Mm-hmm. That is the organized crime, organized drug dealing, organized protection racket, whatever. No, that stuff does not happen without the cooperation of the authorities. So I thought, good Lord, is that not a simple solution? Wouldn't you love to see that? Got all this Chicago. Okay, go in and arrest the mayor, the chief of police, and have a public trial. I think that would pretty much put a stop to it.
Well, you got to wonder how that kind of a punishment paradigm would work out here in the United States, where it seems like we find more often than not, even the highest officials that we have are involved in high crimes. I mean, like, you just look down there to California, and we just busted, Leland Yee. He was one of the most anti-gun California state senators in existence, and yet here he is running a gun running operation out of his house.
Yeah, well, you know, that happens here in America because we don't have that paradigm. I think if we did, that would not be happening. In any case, the Chinese operate differently. Mm. Their rules are not rules against. They're rules of performance. You need to be honest, basically. That's all they're asking. You need to be honest. If you're an official, if you're doing something, do it honestly. That's all they're asking. So if you look deep into that, all they're doing is saying, we see dishonesty. Mm. And we don't like that. And so we're going to put our foot down. Thank God. There's a lot of dishonesty in cryptocurrencies, pyramid schemes, and outright scams. Please God. So no, don't worry about those things. All of those media bites that come from China are designed specifically to make us think the Chinese are doing whatever. No, they have a worldview which is virtually alien to ours, and to my mind, profoundly more effective.
Oh, it certainly sounds like it. You know, when I look at the difference in materials, investment materials between different countries and whatnot, I find that the Chinese don't seem to be as interested in the direct, like, explanations of function per se, so much as intent and scope of the project itself. You know, what it intends to do.
Yes, and the people involved in it. I mean, the people involved. I mean, if you go onto the MaxBitcoin.com, just look at the photos of my Chinese partners. I mean, you know, I'm embarrassed to be on the same page with them because they seem so pure. I mean, the pure in the business sense. Clearly, people of quality. And so that's what the Chinese invest in. They invest in the people more than anything else. Because if the person is solid, if the person is known to be honest, known to be timely, that will deliver what he says to deliver in the time that was said, and the performance and function of what he's delivering is right on, then yeah, that's the person you trust. That's the person you invest in.
Indeed. And so, did you actually discover these two gentlemen in China, or were you associated with them previously?
No, they came to me. Here's something extraordinarily odd. Of all countries in the world, I am more well-known in China than any other, certainly more well-known than here in America. When we went, my wife and bodyguard and I went to the security conference, and by the way, that was huge. I spoke to 6,000 people there, the largest live audience I've ever spoken to. But I was mobbed everywhere I went. I finally said, we got to get away. And so I talked to my handlers and said, can we go to the Great Wall for a day? They said, of course, of course. So we got a taxi. I stepped out of the taxi at the Great Wall. Within 2 seconds, a man rushed up and said, Mr. McAfee, picture. I don't know why this is. Well, to some degree I did, because I asked my handler, I said, why is this? I don't understand it. I mean, we're not the same language. They said, then they said, you are a revolutionary. We were made by Mao Zedong, the greatest revolutionary of the world. You are a revolutionary, Mr. McAfee, and we love you. I go, Jesus Christ, who would have guessed? So I get contacted by them all the time to cooperate with them.
Excellent.
I don't know. It's a weird world, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's like you're the fifth Beatle over there or something, or they build you as such.
They do. It's weird, and then but they actually recognize my face. That's strange. So, but yeah, no, and the crowd would get so crushed that I would have to be rescued by my Chinese handlers, because I was as polite and reserved as the Chinese are. These photo sessions where the line would be 30 people deep and they're all pressing in for photos and they're afraid they're not going to get one. It got scary. Wow. It got scary. Wow. So, as I said, who would have guessed? I would have guessed the Russians. Well, the Russians actually do love me more than the U.S. But the Chinese, it's unbelievable. My name in China is like gold, which is why these people want me to cooperate with them.
That's excellent. And so now, have you been directly talking to Yale and John about the project recently, or I mean, are you guys constantly in contact, or like?
Of course, yeah, we're absolutely constantly in contact. Again, we're constantly communicating. We are cooperating on a very major endeavor and a very important one, and certainly an important one for China. And I believe that this accelerator fund will provide a much needed boost to entrepreneurial practices in China, because China it's very difficult as a small business to get started in China. It's an old country with rich families, and even though there's no emperor anymore, there is still the royal blood coursing through the veins of hundreds of thousands of wealthy, important and influential Chinese people. So for a small business to get started, it's not easy. And I think this will jumpstart that process.
I kind of find it surprising, those kind of interests being the actual countervailing pressures that startups are facing these days. Do you find that to be similar here in the U.S. as far as the types of pressures, or do you think that's kind of unique to China?
Okay, I'm sorry. I need the question again. I didn't hear it.
It's okay. With regard to the different pressures that startups are facing, Would you say would you say that those are kind of unique to China, or would you say we face those same kind of things maybe against legacy interests here in the United States?
Well, I think they're different. I think the pressures in China are not so much regulatory. In other words, they don't have to fill out 1,000 forms just to get a business license,
right?
Or what have you, or they don't have to have the occupational health and whatever administration come in to make sure that your chairs are not going to harm the employees. However, they do have the problem of customers because without the lineage, without the knowledge of your background, your family, and the influence that the name has, it is difficult to get people to buy your product. Here in America, you may have the greatest product and anybody will buy it, but can you actually build a company to sell it and survive?
Right.
All of the forms and pressures of our government, which clearly does not want to see entrepreneurism fly.
Well, you would think that that alone would change under a Trump presidency, supposedly so pro-business, yes. Right?
Yes, thank God, and I think it will. I really do, because seriously, if you don't know what you're doing in starting a business in America, then you have to hire a lawyer. You've got to hire all kinds of specialists to tell you, well, you don't want to do it this way because so-and-so is going to come down on you, or you don't want to do it this way because somebody else is going to come down on you.
Yeah.
Well, why do I have to worry about these things? I should be able to hang out a shingle and say, John McAfee, shoemaker, do you want shoes? Come inside. I mean, you can't do that anymore.
Indeed. Now, could you envision being able to start McAfee Antivirus, or McAfee as you finally have developed it into? Could you imagine trying to start up a company on that scale today?
No, it'd be impossible. I'm sorry. It would be impossible for me because I would not have the patience or the tolerance to do that. I would become angry very early on. And I would probably go out naked into the street with a sign going, "Revolt against America."
So now,
what
kind of long-run impacts do you think that kind of difference in perspective is going to have going into this new paradigm of cryptocurrencies and so on?
It's going to change it for the better. Because think about it. You can set up an entire cryptocurrency business from your home, and if you're using Monero, no one knows you're doing anything. I mean, please. I think that's brilliant. And I think that more and more people will use the privacy and anonymity of cryptocurrency transactions, of the blockchain, of group consensus, to subvert the madness that the world has or that the U.S. at least has created for the business world. And I think it's fine.
Indeed. And so, with regard to the development going forward, how do you think this difference in regulatory paradigms is going to impact us versus other people?
I don't think in the near term much is going to happen because deeply ingrained bureaucracies require a fair amount of time to uproot. This is just a fact of life. Any if you look at any paradigm, whether it's business, social, cultural, spiritual, religious, moral, the embedded power is a difficult thing to uproot. It happens. But it's not going to happen fast. So whatever change and imperceptible at first, but in the long run, we will be far better off.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct there. Now, and actually having run for president, what do you think of that whole process now that you've actually done it as a candidate?
Well, I would never do it again. It's a horrific process. Politics, anything business is bad. Politics is far worse because it's personal. It's all personal. You have an opponent, and both of you cannot get the prize. End of story. It's not like a business where we go, I tell you what, let's carve up the prize, all right? As you know, you take the large industries, and I'll be happy with the small and the home user, or whatever. You don't actually sit down with the opponent and do that, but unconsciously and unspokenly, you both see where you're going, and you split the prize. Well, you can't do that in politics. You can't say, okay, Gary Johnson, you can be president from January till March, and I'll be president from April till June, and we'll swap. No, it doesn't work that way. Well, so it's very personal, and it gets very ugly because everything is on the line. Well, it's like you're running a business, and if you don't stomp Symantec, your business will die, your employees will be laid off, and you'll end up with a dime. That's what it is in politics. So it is horrific. And the shit that people pull. Well, another thing I'm having an acid flashback. These people can't possibly be acting in this way. But yes, they are.
Anything specific? Anything
I'm sorry?
specific? Anything specific that you recall that was particularly outlandish?
Well, yeah, I'll give you some clues. Okay, so I had a campaign manager who was doing really fucking well. So one of my opposing candidates hired him for 3 times the money to quit. Not to work for him, just to quit. He got paid not to work. Well, it's hard for a man not to accept that, because campaign managing is hard friggin' work. And he did. So I ended up without a campaign manager for a few days, and then luckily Miss Tiffany Madison, my savior, jumped on board with a lower character, and she stayed with me through the end. But, I mean, it's things like that you don't think about in business. I mean, it does happen somewhat. Another one, now this really takes the cake. Another one of my compatriots who I really like very much, I'll tell you, Austin Peterson, his girlfriend was wooed by someone else from another member, another candidate, not just with a good-looking guy, but with a shitload of money. And she took it right at a point where he was the most vulnerable. Now, you think, well, so what? Good riddance. But no, if you're in love with someone and it's suddenly gone.
That's demoralizing.
Yeah, but come on, it's like stuff like this happens all the time, and you think, well, no, that doesn't happen. I promise you, you throw enough money at somebody, and the world changes. You think, no, they would never. It wouldn't take $1 million to leave somebody. Bullshit. I've seen it happen now, and I hope never to see it again.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I really think that a similar campaign is going on amongst altcoins and certain companies within the cryptosphere. And one of the most notable ones that caught me was the takedown of Cryptsy. I thought it was kind of suspicious that they would go after the money of the customers as Big Vern's money, but basically getting that divorce sunk Cryptsy. Not to say it wasn't in trouble to begin with, but
yeah, I agree. Which is another advantage to doing this in China, where the overwhelming majority of coin holders will be Chinese. The Chinese abandoned these practices thousands of years ago as non-life supporting for the culture and the country. They understood that these practices do not work well, not in the long run. If I'm trying to build something for my 4th generation down the line, I don't want these tactics to be involved.
So you're talking about the targeting of the family and whatnot?
I'm sorry?
You're talking about the targeting of the family or significant others in business?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that would be such foul play for the Chinese that the perpetrator would have no more customers. No one would want to deal with a man of such low character.
Oh, I can certainly sympathize with that perspective. I wasn't feeling too good with all the money I lost on Cryptsy. But Now, with regard to cryptocurrencies and the McAfee XL project, how exactly do you intend to disperse your ICO tokens?
We're not revealing that right now.
Okay.
We'll when
Sorry.
we come out and publish the white paper and everything else, you'll get the full effects.
Indeed. Well, I don't want you to reveal all your good stuff here, but I'm a crypto media guy. What do you want? I'm terribly interested. And so now I saw somewhere else that you're also talking about expanding your.
Unfortunately.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. What?
Yes, unfortunately, I tell you.
I read somewhere that you're also planning on expanding your mining operations. Care to go any deeper in that?
Well, I mean, we purchased another 1,000 S9s from Bitmain,
right?
And we'll have those online in soon, in a couple of weeks. And the machines arrived weeks ago, crating and setting up 1,000 machines and installing them in a secure facility in the state of Washington is a little bit time consuming. But when we finish that, we will have 22 petahash online, which will put us as certainly the largest Bitcoin miner in North America. And we are also cooperating with Bitmain to create the McAfee pool, which will be the largest mining pool for Bitcoin in the world.
In the world, or just in the U.S.?
For the mining pool, no, it'll be the largest in the world.
Wow!
Look at all the hash power that Bitmain has.
Sounds like you're adjusting there.
No, I mean, basically, it's a way for Jihan to appear less Chinese centric, and with the use of my name, there's some negatives to it, but generally, if it's applied to technology, it has some positive effects. The application of my name to it and the relationship that I have with Jihan will certainly, again, look at the hashing power they have. We only have 20 petahash. He has 1,000 times more than that. It will be the largest pool by a long shot.
Nice. And so now I've actually I've heard you give two views on altcoins that seemed kind of contradictory at the time, but it seemed like you were suggesting that the world at one point or another would fall under a single monetary paradigm with regard to cryptocurrencies, and yet at the same time it was on another interview, I believe, where you were talking about how it is open source and the baby is pretty much out of the fetus. I mean, the fetus is out of the womb here. Where are you leaning closer to now these days?
Well, I'm not sure I've got the question right, but I've said nothing contradictory. Yeah, cryptocurrencies are out of the box. You can't get them back in. I didn't say there would be a single source like Bitcoin or anything else. I mean, think about it. Every currency has its strengths. I mean, look at Ethereum and the development of smart contracts, and every currency will have its place. And Monero, I promise you, the underbelly of the world will never stop using Monero, and that's a lot of people. So no, there won't be a single one, but there will be a single problem for world governments, which is whichever one you're using, good luck trying to collect your taxes. Okay?
Yeah,
this is the problem.
Yeah, I can see that definitely being a challenge, and one of the things I've postulated as a possibility as far as the way that government would morph is becoming more like an a la carte kind of thing, where when you're deciding at the end of the year whether or not you want to pay taxes, that you would be dedicating your funds by the line item, simply out of virtue of the fact that that's actually possible in cryptocurrencies. But that's just go ahead.
I'll have to step out of this and tell you that I believe that taxation is theft.
Absolutely.
And that the governments should fund themselves in some way other than stealing my time. But that's an extreme view, and I'll leave you with that.
Oh, I honestly, I agree with you 100%. And I've actually worked a little bit in manufacturing, and during that time, I was oriented with the idea of statistical process control. And one of the things in statistical process control is that you're able to monitor a manufacturing cell down to the individual operating in it. Well, my thought with regard to cryptocurrencies is that we could change the compensation model to be one that's based on actual effort given, not a standardized expectation of compensation per hour or per day or whatever, but based on your actual output. If in your cell, if you're in your cell of 4 people and you're pulling 2.3 people worth of the weight while everybody else is just sitting around picking their nose, shouldn't you be the one that's compensated the most?
I agree. Well, I cut my teeth on process automation too with General Electric, automating Australia Iron and Steel's mill in Port Kembla, New South Wales. But basically, we got rid of people in that, and we were dealing with the individual rolling mills and the feedback mechanisms. And but I agree, it's everything should be based on what you produce, what you do, so what the consensus of your peers think you do, or you are perceived to do. Same thing.
Yeah, like I was saying, I think with the fact that, like, when I worked in a factory, I had to assign every single lot of product that I moved through my station, right? And so my thought with regard to the compensation models that are possible with cryptocurrencies is that because they're deterministically created, you can evaluate the person's overall output, like the amount that they're actually producing for the company. You could be compensating them based on that instead of, again, their hourly rate or their position rate or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I agree. In my case, again, as a miner, it's very simple for me. I produce the currency, okay?
Right.
I produce the coins to a massively complex process involving more electricity than Denmark uses, and processing power that is so great we no longer even measure it in gigahashes or terahashes, but it's now in petahashes. So that's a lot of work that I do to create a coin. I mean, a massive amount. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's a piece of cake. You run the numbers. This is what I produce. End of story.
Right.
But for other operations, it's not quite that simple, is it?
Well, I've argued that one of the problems with regard to mining, and especially when you're trying to evaluate your actual output for electricity, as far as coins produced, I find that they're kind of errant, because from the time that you actually buy the hardware and get the hardware set up and get the hardware pointed correctly and whatnot, the valuation has already changed. So the valuation.
But listen, the valuation doesn't matter much. Here's what I've learned. It doesn't matter to me whether Bitcoin is selling at $2,900 or $2,100 or even $1,500 from a mining standpoint, because as the price drops, so does the difficulty. Okay, so I just get to produce more coins. As the price goes up, the difficulty goes up, because people go, "Oh my God, going up, I'm going to jump in." Right. So it's a self-correcting problem. That is, fluctuations don't matter to me at all. I run on a pretty standard overhead and percentage, and what the price of Bitcoin is almost inconsequential. And again, that's unique to mining. Indeed. So
now, with regard to that,
and here we also get back to the argument about proof of work versus proof of stake.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly proof of stake is ultimately more ecologically sound because you're not chewing up valuable resources like electricity. Okay.
Well, I think that was kind of the point behind proof of work, is that it would be difficult to replicate it. You'd actually have to expend a significant amount of electricity.
See, that is the problem. However, people are coming up with some tricky math that makes proof of stake almost as difficult to unravel. So, I don't know where it's going. I'm all for the easiest way to do anything, and I want to tell you now, it is not easy to get a facility that will produce enough electricity to run 2,000 S9 ASICs with a reasonable cost and a reasonable return. That's some hard stuff.
Well,
I'd much rather have my electricity bill be $1,000 a month instead of $100,000 a month.
Well, and as a miner, I was most interested in this question for you, is that the UASF people have been talking about how they're going to be running things on these Raspberry Pis. As an actual miner, marshaling terahashes worth of work, how ridiculous does that seem to you?
I'm sorry, but it seems to the absurd, to be frank with you. It is very ridiculous. Do you want an economy based on the Raspberry Pi? I think you want something based on a little more structure, a little more substantial everything. I've got nothing against Raspberry Pis. Great devices.
Oh no, neither do I. But I mean, if I thought you could sustain the hashing load of a 6 exahash network on the back of Raspberry Pis, I'd be all for it.
Of course. And by the way, here's something that no one's talking about, which is turning into a serious problem. Hackers around the world have finally figured it out. You know what? If I co-opt the spare computing power of every computer in the world, I'll be the largest Bitcoin miner, the largest Monero miner, the largest Ethereum miner. And it's happening. They're already discovering tens of thousands of computers that have been co-opted by hackers. Now, what does this mean? It means bad news for the currency that the hackers have co-opted. Think about it.
Oh, yeah, that they're running botnets.
Yes, suddenly your difficulty rate has gone up and you can't figure out why.
Oh, definitely. Well, yeah, and wasn't there something recent with Monero with regard to that happening?
Yes, it was specifically Monero that happened with. But if it can happen with Monero, it'll happen with anything.
And now, what are your thoughts with regard to that? I mean, just the fact that people can do that, set up a botnet for that.
Well, that's one reason to run ASIC machines, isn't it?
Almost certainly. Well, and again, it taps back to that point of the efficiency of proof of work, that it's not particularly efficient. And I've read the white paper several times, and it seems to me that that's a feature, not a bug, where it's so difficult to mimic the actual network's work that it's harder to try and mimic it than just play along with the rules and try and make Bitcoin,
Right. Well, maybe not. I mean, the Monero people were making substantial money. Like $100,000 a month or so by co-opting spare computing power. I mean, the math to put all that together is trivial. You're hashing each of them, and if one of them pops, one of them pops. If the chance of it popping is 1 in a million, then all you need is a million machines to be co-opted, and then you're happy.
Well, the first time that I'd heard about people creating botnets specifically to mine, I was joking that somebody was going to take over Dick Cheney's pacemaker and mine Dogecoin with it.
You never know. You never know.
Never know.
So, well, gentlemen, I think my time is up.
Good enough, sir. It has been an extreme pleasure speaking with you, as I had imagined many, many, many times it would be. And we did record it, so it will be up on the YouTube channel for everybody's listening pleasure at a later date. And thank you again, Wonderful. Mr. McAfee. Again, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I look forward to doing so sometime in the future.
All right. Thank you very much, Frank. Bye-bye.
All right. You have a great night. And that was the infamous Mr. John McAfee. Well, a pleasure. What a rare and true pleasure it was to speak with him here on Coin Metal. And as we are into the second hour, significantly, we'll go ahead and do a little bit of a music break here. And I got a few tabs open on the browser, so we'll touch back into some articles and see how that rolls. So let's go ahead and throw it down. A little bit of Ministry right off the bat. Rio Grande Blood here on Coin Metal. And that was More Human Than Human by White Zombie. And man, I gotta tell you, I'm still kind of buzzing in my head after that one. It's just been so long that I've fantasized talking to the man, and the kind of things that I'd say to him, and kind of questions I would ask him. I mean, literally, the entire day has been nothing but an internal dialogue between me and an imaginary Mr. McAfee. And I got to tell you, having the man on here and talking to him went better than I'd ever imagined it. And we covered pretty much everything that I'd ever wanted to ask the man. And of course, there were a few other things that I just rather not address here that I would have liked to have asked him, but there are future times, I'm sure. But yes, like I said, a terribly, terribly exciting interview there with Mr. McAfee. And for those of you who might have been disappointed that I didn't get into the salacious details of his issues down in Belize, in all honesty, I felt like there's been more than enough crypto media or media in general concerning that aspect of the man's life. And so, it's kind of a beaten path, it's been there, done that kind of thing. And I was far more interested in his interest in cryptocurrencies. And as I said, I could not have been more surprised and more pleased. And he absolutely delivered. It's surprising to me that that thing about the Chinese regulation showing up in our media here in crypto media, that kind of surprised me. Although it did reflect a lot of my suspicions with regard to the differences in the way that the Chinese regard regulation and the way that we regard regulation. I mean, I've read more than enough ICO material over the years or not over the years, but over the year, that a lot of it just wouldn't pass the smell test with regard to altcoins. I don't know if you guys remember the original first altcoin burst when everything and its brother, including Mugatu, had its own fucking cryptocurrency. And I don't believe that's over. I believe we're currently seeing some of that in ICOs, but that eventually it'll rinse out of that, and I think it'll go back to altcoins as more people become enraptured by the concept of being Janet Yellen for a few years or decades or centuries even, depending on the span of their perspective. And, like I said, I was terribly impressed with the man, and especially his perspective on the cash cow ICO idea. In all honesty, I've seen evidence of that, there being a necessity in that niche, that early development stage in every company where you're still trying to figure out your direction, you're still trying to figure out your operational protocols. It might help to have somebody over your shoulder saying, hey, when we started out, this is how we did it. the laws have changed a little bit, so you need to do this instead, but this is how you should probably go about that. And I think that's very, very useful. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of the root essence behind this show, or at least the music that I play on it. Because I feel like metal in particular, it certainly does not lack talent. I mean, the first thing that surprised me about getting into trying to play a guitar was the amount of actual skill and actual quote-unquote education, meaning learning how to write music, learning how to read music, learning how to write tablature, so on and so forth. How much of that was actually involved? You know, I mean, MTV videos give you the impression that you just pick up the guitar and you get on the stage and the chicks slobber on you, and that's metal. You know, and I think that's been a disservice to metal, in that's the regard that a lot of people hold metal performances in until they're actually exposed to them. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, where somebody got talked into going to like a Rage Against the Machine concert, or a Rat concert, or a Metallica concert. You know, they got conned into going because the majority of their friends were going, or their big brother was going, or whatever. And then they found out that there was a lot more to metal than hair and guitars and chicks slobbering on you. They found out that there was actual talent, actual showmanship. And then they examined the lyric sheets, and they realized that there's intellect behind the lyrics, and that there's very deep thinking going on beyond that, and suddenly they become a metalhead. Well, I think that same void between actual quality and what is most prevalently marketed is one of the kind of how should I say it? It's one of the symptoms of the system that we have today. And that, again, it's one of the reasons why I play the metal that I do. I can't tell you how many times people have told me in IRC and Twitter and whatnot, saying, I'm now a Prong fan, or now I like Fear Factory, or now I'm a big Slayer fan now, because these were the first exposures that people had to this music. And really, in the future, I would like to expand what I'm playing on here to be specifically new unsigned bands. And ultimately, the way I envision it, the kind of role that I can fill there is giving these people, both existing bands and new ones, the kind of exposure that those top 40 bands always get. You know, where you go into the gym and they're playing their the one good song on the CD every third song over the PA system, and you get like brainwashed into buying the fucking album, right? Well, because these metal bands don't get that kind of exposure, I felt that, you know what? If I ever do a radio show or something like that, I'm going to play the music that I like and the music that I think is interesting. Because, you know what? We all have different perspectives. And not everybody's going to like everything that I like, but somebody might hear something that I play and go, holy shit, where has this been all my life? And that's at least the hope. And so I think I kind of hearken back to Mr. Bryce Weiner and his Tau project, and I kind of wonder if it could fulfill that, at least the financial segment of that whole relationship, where somebody who is interested in investing in new bands and the success thereof could be providing that kind of group support through, you know, as a product of their actual works or something like that. I'm not sure how the compensation model would work out, but as far as how I would do it on this show, I would like pre-listen to this stuff, and if I like it, I would probably play it. And as far as like how people would get compensated for it, I don't know how all that would work out, but I'm sure that you can monitor things like listeners and viewers and how long people viewed it, and, you know, whether or not they heard a specific song or something like that. I don't know. but I'm sure it's possible because we are in the 21st century and all of these tools just laying about. Certain there's a way to do it. And of course my IRC is flashing like somebody is talking to me right now. Intended audience is large subgroups, blah blah blah. Yeah, whatever. Cool. As a negative trust metric. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know if any of you guys were having any kind of trouble connecting to the radio station. I think I might have crushed the server during the time that Mr. McAfee was on. If so, my apologies. Don't worry. It will be posted in full, sans the music, of course, as usual, up on my YouTube channel for your later listening. And as a matter of fact, my THC count is a little bit low, so I do want to drop down into a short bit of music here. And then I was envisioning having Mr. McAfee on. My wildest dreams were playing me wrong there, and of course I didn't pick up any tabs on my browser. So I'm going to go ahead and kick in just a short one here, get a little chance to get a smoke break in and pull up a tab or two. And so for the meantime, I like playing this song, but it's really, really, really long. It'll give me plenty of time to like regroup and whatnot. And so whatever you're doing, you'll probably enjoy this song. It's a Farewell to Arms by Machine Head off of The Blackening, the one album that can be said to never be played on the radio due to the extraordinary length of the songs. And so here it is, A Farewell to Arms by Machine Head, here on Coin Metal. My goodness, that's a long song. That was A Farewell to Arms, and it's not even finished yet. It goes on for like another few seconds, but we're kind of done for right now on that. And of course, let's see here. We did talk a lot about China, but I don't know that that's something that we want to talk about on this show, spies and whatnot. Oh my God, this is what I want to talk about. I saw this on my Twitter feed, and there's been attempts by the WCN to interview this guy already, and when I saw this, I just about fell out of my fucking chair laughing. As a matter of fact, I sent this article to Mr. McAfee prior to the show, and I had asked him, I said, is this a sign? Is the revolution here? It's on CNBC.com. Someone held up a Buy Bitcoin sign during Yellen's testimony to Congress. This is written by Evelyn Chang, our good friend Evelyn, and here we go. An unidentified person held up a sign saying, quote, "Buy Bitcoin," that was visible on television during Fed Chair Janet Yellen's testimony to the House Financial Services Committee on Wednesday. Bitcoin subsequently climbed towards session highs and traded 3.5% higher at $24.15 as of 1:03 p.m. Eastern Time, according to CoinDesk. Yellen was speaking during the first round of the Fed's semi-annual monetary policy report to Congress and the state of the economy. Fundstrat's Tom Lee said in a Friday note that central banks may one day buy digital currencies like Bitcoin. Lee was the first major Wall Street strategist to issue a report on the cryptocurrency. Yeah, so yeah, if you didn't catch that, I'm amazed, because other than the fact that I was interviewing Mr. McAfee, the highest number of views that I saw for anything today was of this gentleman holding up a sign saying "Buy Bitcoin" directly over the right shoulder of Miss Janet Yellen as she spoke to Congress. And I think that was that was a pretty epic moment right there, and I'd like to congratulate the gentleman for being so ingenious and so timely. And yeah, man, I think the the message was heard loud and clear by Bitcoin. And so, wow, I'm still buzzing from having Mr. McAfee on. Like I said, I've waited a really, really long time to talk to him, and there were 1,000,001 things that I didn't talk to him about that I would like to talk to him about sometime, possibly on a future show. We never know. But yeah, his study of how plants fight off disease, I think that is pretty amazing stuff. I really would have been interested to hear what his extended findings were, and hope that at some point or another somebody follows his research, because that sounds like a very, very interesting realm of immunology that certainly an interesting perspective on it. I don't believe I've ever heard that echoed as far as that perspective on plants. I mean, because really think about it, plants can't just get up and walk away. You know, if there's some sort of ecological threat in their proximity, they don't really have the option to just uproot and bail. You know, and so studying their immunities or their immune faculties or immunity faculties, I think it's a very interesting insight, and it would follow along with the fact that even in this day and age, all of our new drugs come from nature. All of the new drugs, like I want to say, like 90% of all the new drugs that are created every year are either from direct extracts or synthesis of compounds that were found in nature. So, you know, nature has a great deal more to teach us, it would seem. And of course, I'm a little bit rare on my tabs still, because while I was able to up my THC count, I was not able to up my tab count. And like I said, my Twitter feed today, like I said, if it didn't have to do with me interviewing Mr. McAfee, it had to do with that gentleman today at Jen Yellen's right side. Man, that's just such an epic photo bomb. I mean, and it was video too, so video bomb. But anyway, we did do a quick look up here. And of course, all anybody still wants to talk about is the quote-unquote Civil War. Oh, here we go. Morgan Stanley. Leave it to Morgan Stanley to have this kind of perspective. This one is on MarketWatch.com, published July 12, 2017 at 7:54 p.m. Eastern Time. And who is the author? Miss Sue Chang. And so, clearly, no penis, because she does have a picture here. Here we go. Morgan Stanley thinks Bitcoin is nothing more than a poster child for speculation. Like we didn't know that one already, right? Bitcoin may be the reigning prima donna of the crypto market, but at least one big Wall Street bank is not impressed. A team of Morgan Stanley analysts led by James Fassett on Wednesday held up Bitcoin as a poster child for speculation while downplaying its potential as a legitimate currency. In a scathing report, the analysts noted the number of online merchants accepting Bitcoin has dropped to just 3 from 5 a year earlier. During the same period, the value of the cryptocurrency has soared more than 250%. The disparity between virtually no merchant acceptance and Bitcoin's rapid appreciation is striking, Fassett wrote. Or it might be Fawcett. My apologies. He blamed the lack of Bitcoin's appeal for retailers on hoarding by investors, given its rapid appreciation as well as higher costs and slow transaction times. But ironically, the main culprit may be its own skyrocketing worth. quote, the ecosystem has focused more on value speculation rather than the foot leather eating work of increasing acceptance. Way easier to trade speculatively than convince new merchants to accept the cryptocurrency, said Fawcett. I couldn't agree more, actually. In June, Morgan Stanley had warned that for digital currencies to join the ranks of other traditional investment tools, they must accept government oversight. Fuck you, no, not true. Although it did not articulate what that would entail. And just a side note, we've kind of replaced that whole regulatory bullshit with the way our coins operate. Sorry, no need for regulators. Meanwhile, until those regulators are introduced, the debate over whether Bitcoin is just another form of monopoly money or a bona fide currency is likely to continue without a definitive conclusion. Yes, I couldn't agree more, Ms. Chang. Yeah, I think this guy is completely off. On a couple notes. On the greater note of Bitcoin not getting enough traction on the retail end of things, I can see that. But really, I see that as a failure of retailers to understand what's being really being presented to them. And I'll give you an example. I stopped by a weed dispensary not too long ago, as I'm prone to do on occasion. Anyway, I went in there and I was talking to the gentleman that was sitting at the front desk doing entries and whatnot, and I was just kibitzing, just rapping, about cryptocurrencies and how I thought that they could bridge that digital gap, that digital transaction gap that weed dispensaries seem to experience. And this went on for a moment or two, 2 or 3 minutes tops. Then apparently the manager came out and briskly told me that they were not interested. And I told her, I'm like, I'm not even pitching this guy, I'm just talking. And she's like, we're not interested. We're not interested. Okay. I attribute this to two things. Number one, and this one offends me the most, but I can see the interest in it, is that those that have previously tried to introduce the concept of doing cryptocurrency transactions to these people have been very aggressive about adopting their service. Not cryptocurrencies as a utility to bridge this digital transaction gap. No. Got to sell themselves as a third-party arbiter. Now, personally, if I were to try and monetize a service like that, especially considering the clientele, my focus would be on how to show them how to onboard themselves. And my only monetary gain interest would be the initial consulting session and consultation session, whatever. Okay? And then if I do manage to get them to, or if they do decide that they want to sign up with a specific service rather than me manage to get them to sign up to a specific service, that if there's any kind of residuals or royalties from that, okay. I don't really give a shit if there are. Personally, all I'm really interested in is onboarding people. Now, if I can show them how to most frictionlessly integrate their services with Bitcoin, that would be my only interest. I don't want to extort them for the rest of their fucking business cycles. I want them to get the most profit out of the fucking transaction, because that will ensure that they will be there. And that is the beachhead that really needs to be maintained. I could give a fuck about whether or not I get to get transaction fees off of them for the rest of their time in business. I want them to be in business long after I'm gone. because that will mean that the entrepreneurial participation is still there. You know, if I'm acting solely out of my own interest, and I get a little bit of where Mr. McAfee was coming from with regard to this. If I act solely out of my own interest, I negate the possibility for future business. Because I'll give you a straight up fact. Liquid wealth in liquid form, as in cash form, is going away. These people are forced to transact almost exclusively in cash money. That means when cash money goes away, they go away. Unless they can make this transition, this hop, into cryptocurrencies. Then the transition will be very, very easy for them because they will have already set up all the business relationships and accounts that they need to do in order to be able to maintain fluid and operational. Because I don't think the feds are going to give up on this little stranglehold section they got on the federal government end of regulating cannabis, and they're going to maintain that stranglehold situation because it's actually in the bank's interest. I mean, I don't bore you guys too much with this, but I really think that the prohibition of cannabis was actually about reshaping the entire economy than anything to do with how high you could get. And I've talked about this once or twice in brief amount, but before the time when the banks were the sources of quote-unquote wealth or liquidity, farmers were the source of liquidity because they were the economy. You know, it's like they had to farm the food, they had to grow the food, they had to kill the food, but they were guaranteed damn near to sell the food. Okay, so they were almost always guaranteed some sort of profit. So they were the biggest employers because they were the source of food. And so they had the political power of being the biggest employers and also the economic power of being the highest concentration of economic wealth. That meant that politicians didn't go to their bankers. No. They went to the farmers. I mean, I'm sure they went to their bankers too, but that's beside the point. They went to the farmers because the farmers were the bigger draw of interest. They were a bigger concentration of monetary wealth. They were a bigger concentration of political and manpower in the economy. See, now you know you only have to break one of those. If you can break the economic section, then you can shift the concentration of the manpower, both in social priorities and economic priorities and so on and so forth. And so, with the Federal Reserve taking over like they have, they became the concentration of wealth. They became the source of political power. And so I really consider this to be the intransigence, or the source of intransigence, with regard to our government kind of pressuring a level playing field for monetary units. And I really think that's the kind of step that the U.S. government anyway needs to take, is be like, all right, look, this cryptocurrency thing isn't going to go away anytime soon. As a matter of fact, we're going to jump on board with it because it's clear to us it's not going to be going away anytime soon. So what we're going to do is, we're going to put out our own cryptocurrency, and we're going to elect to allow the public to mine it. If they do that, and treat all cryptocurrencies the same across the board with this, and interchangeable with this cryptocurrency that I'm proposing, that'll be it. That would be the gap that needs to be jumped right there, is the U.S. federal government, or the government of America, whatever we may define that to be after the whole shit shakes out. Because I kind of expect a shit shaking out to occur at some point or another. The smartest move would be within the next year, possibly 2 years, to get together with some of these hardcore devs and say, look, we know we're not going to work around you. We know rather than deal with this fucking bullshit the way we have been dealing with it, this is what we're going to do. We're going to allow the public to create cryptocurrencies willy-nilly. Don't really care about that. But what we want you to do is we want you to hammer out and develop our coin. Okay? We want you to write it, and of course the submissions for BIPs or USIPs or whatever the fucking coin may be, USCIPs, US coin, improvement proposals, that will have that completely open to the public. Now, I think that what we're really talking about here is a reformatting of what we consider the world economy to be, in a far more participatory level for the average person. And how that will affect the political dynamic on this planet. Because, as I said, currently, other than cryptocurrencies, banks are the primary source of wealth. Before that, it was farmers. Okay, and back to that section for just a moment there. Before pot prohibition in this country, cannabis was the number one cash crop here for the previous 3 centuries. Now imagine that. Okay, if you can get one plant made illegal, you can convert the entire economic base of the most powerful country on planet Earth. And they did it in 1937. And we're only now recovering from that. But again, consider how this is going to change the power dynamic. Sure, there's all kinds of regulatory red tape out there, and there's all kinds of partnerships, and there's all kinds of nepotism and bullshit and whatever. But among all of that exists the seed, the chance that an average person could go from being some dude with some pot to somebody producing the best cannabis on planet Earth and be very, very successful at that and create the kind of interest and the kind of political and economic power that farmers, average people, used to wield over both bank and government alike. The Vorpal blade of digital finance is now in our hands, folks. And that's one point I keep trying to hammer home, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Mr. McAfee on here, because beyond other things, he's a libertarian, and I think he really gets this kind of perspective of things a lot better than other people do. Like I chided him on the show about him being the only presidential candidate who sounded like he lived in this century. It's very scary, but it's true. I mean, you would think somebody as business savvy as Mr. Trump would be all up on that cybersecurity business because he understood the threats that it represented to his business and whatnot. But no, it's kind of obvious that even in his business life, I'm not saying he's not intelligent or whatever, but I think he's been in kind of like an insular little bubble. And I think if exposed to the correct realities, that he would probably be far more amenable to cryptocurrencies and would be a little more apt to yank back on the leash of entities such as the SEC and the FCC and the FDIC, because the type of regulatory paradigm that they're trying to erect around us is going to keep us in the Stone Age, the digital fucking Stone Age, while the rest of the world goes to flying cars and Jetsons. And honestly, as an American, I'm ashamed to admit that. We're supposed to be the fucking dreamers. We're supposed to be the people that are designing the fucking air cars and designing the fucking houses up in the clouds and the air tubes that ejaculate us from fucking home to work. We're supposed to be working on that shit. Not other fucking people, us. We're supposed to know how to do that shit. We're supposed to be fucking Elroy. By the time we're fucking 10 or 11, we're supposed to be fixing that home robot. We're supposed to be reconfiguring the home network. That's what we're supposed to be doing at that age. That's the future we're supposed to be living in right now. Because they were drawing that shit back in what, the 60s, the 70s? That means we should be living that shit now. And it's a fucking insult that we're not, really. I mean, because you can see all around you all of the fucking apparatus to make it possible. Everywhere. No. Let's kick you out of your car by making the roads that are already high traffic. Let's cut back on the lanes because fuck you and fuck your car. Not let's get you an air car. No. We're going to stuff you in the fucking Hyperloop with another 500,000 people and ejaculate you 500 miles one way. Yeah, that's the future of transit as they envision it. Fuck that shit. I want my fucking air car. I want the Jetsons life. I want to visit Mars. And I'm not going to get there with a fucking Hyperloop. And you're just gonna have to excuse me, but that's my perspective on it, man. I don't see a future in mass transit. I see the past in mass transit. I see the future in the sky. I see the future in the stars. I don't see it in a fucking Hyperloop. I mean, maybe if the city has gotten so big that I need a fucking Hyperloop to get from the one end of the city to the other, okay. You know, maybe the Hyperloop might be some sort of functional thing there. I still don't want it. As a matter of fact, I don't even want cities. I mean, not like they currently exist. I just don't want it. I don't want to be anywhere near it. That's why I live out here in the boonies. Although I'm not entirely certain how long that option will exist, but you know, seriously, I think this is more how people are supposed to exist. I don't think we're supposed to be stacked on one another like a bunch of fucking lab rats. I mean, sure, it's easier to monitor our social interaction and all that other shit when we're cramped that tightly together, but it's not healthy for the soul, man. It's just not. The human animal needs room to roam, room to explore. And with that, folks, we are coming to our ending here. The most epic interview in all of crypto media history will be up on my YouTube channel later on for your listening pleasure with Mr. John McAfee and myself. And so, yeah, on Friday, I'm not entirely certain. I might actually have another interview with somebody who's not as famous, but I think intrinsically as important in the function that he's currently pursuing in the crypto sphere. I was looking at services to exchange cryptocurrency for actual cash, and this man is actually trying to fill that void. So we may be talking to him on Friday. I will not disclose his identity as of yet. I will allow him to do that himself. And so, as usual, you can find me on Twitter, DJ eRock23. You can find me on IRC in the Verge chat room. And, yeah, you can find me all over Facebook and, of course, YouTube under just check out for the hashtag CoinMetal. And, as always, we do have additional DJs that are going to be coming to Radio Crypto. So keep an eye out for like Verge Dev, and I believe Rick Stoner is also going to be doing shows or has been doing shows. I haven't been keeping up with them as much as I should. That will change, most certainly. And so, yeah, in any case, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. It's been a fucking epic evening. I think I'll be probably buzzing until tomorrow morning at least. And, yeah, thank you very much for listening. I've certainly appreciated your support. And, yeah, I want you all to trade safe. Oh, yeah, we'll be back on Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you to trade safe. I want you to do your fucking homework, because you know what? There's some interesting people out there and some even more interesting projects for you to be checking out. And I want you to watch out for your bunghole, because you know what? There is nobody out there that's going to do it better than you. So you have a good night, and thank you again for listening. We're going to close it out with a little bit of Meshuggah here, Beneath, here on Coin Metal.